Hey, what's going on, all the peoples? It's Ridiculous Badger. I'm actually, yeah, I'm here. I don't know. So look. Here's the thing, okay? I was in conversation with some people that I used to futz around with when I played Ark of War, and that list of people is longer than the list of people that I would call friends. So I mean, that's these are the people that I associate with. Like if I were only to associate with my friends, it would be a very short list. Anyway, somebody had mentioned a bunch of like we got to talking. Whenever we talk about the old times, like everyone, so look, someone's gonna bring up the fact that look, I named my arc lots of things. Okay, like lots and lots of things. So somebody had like mentioned like basically like dropped like they had taken a list at some point that I posted somewhere, and I realized in looking at that list that it was not complete. So I happened to mention like, hey, this is not the most updated version of this report. Can you please rerun this report? And somebody else said like, well, Badger, do you have a list? Like, you can't just say, this isn't them, and it wasn't all of them. But at any rate, I do have a list. I do have a list, and there were 108 names that I called myself over my career of war, which is a lot. But and you know what? For a long time, I did not change my name, but then I just started changing my name very frequently for a long time. So I figured what we would do, more fun than me just posting and replying to that person like, here's an updated iteration of that report you have requested. I decided I would go through my names, what I called my arc, and then I realized, you know what, I can't just go through them because some of them have hilarious stories. So basically figured that we would go through these and like, yeah, let's talk about these hilarious stories. So anyway, look, there's 108 of these MFers. So I started up the stream. I even linked this to Ark of War Aim for the Cosmos, which is the ridiculous name. But anyway, let's go. So I'm going to like no particular order, although I did try and move the names that I like the best to like the back of the deck. So, I was hoping to like reach not an apex, but like something that I don't, whatever, let's just go. So Unicorn Store, again, this wasn't my first one, and I had a number that I called stores, like and later we'll see a few more of them. So this was just me trying to reuse the store concept that had already been using in several other names. Get in there. So Get in there was the name of a spell from Desktop Dungeons. Hey, what's up, Misco? Long time no talk. So yeah, it was the name of a spell from Desktop Dungeons, and it was like basically the spell that I think it gave you first strike. So your next attack would be first strike, and I always like felt like I was like this little guy like in Ark of War, like I was like this little rogue like trying to like backstab maybe is the wrong term, but trying to critical hit. So yeah, I kind of channeled that, and we went with Get in there. So with Desktop Dungeons, all of those spells have weird spellings that you have to like just sound it out, and you realize like get in there, what is that about? Get in there, so get in there first, that's first strike. Hey, Bisco, I'm living my best life, man. I feel sick. So this is another one. I went through another one of these. This was Desktop Dungeons gives your enemy poison. And burn their ass, like that was fireball. That's like burn their ass. Yeah, anyway, this is like obviously going through a bunch of. So Trogdor was of course from Homestar Runner, which was this was before we had like web comics, before we had YouTube. We had Flash. I'm dating myself, man. So before we had YouTube, we had websites that like of like particular content creators that would put out like Flash cartoons, and this was a cartoon in Flash, and Trogdor was the name of a dragon in that. It was in the Homestar Runner, and you should check out their website, and I think they've transferred a lot of their stuff to YouTube. It's friggin' hilarious. Anyway, this is what we had. Unemployed. This is just like, actually for a while I played Ark of War, I was unemployed, so like if you're wondering why I was in the game like 20 hours, it's because for some part of my Ark of War career I was unemployed, but also for one part of it, like I worked remotely, so like I used to play at the office too, before I left that position, and like it pissed everybody off. Both out of the game and in game. Your stepdad. Okay, so your stepdad, I don't know. Like, I was just thinking of stupid names, and this is one of the dumbest. And what was kind of cool is I had a counterpart in Seraphim. This is back when I was Vice. I was like third in line. The guy who was second in line, his name was Sick Nasty, and he made his name, after I did this, he made his name your stepmom. So that was kind of funny for a while. Like, we did a lot of stuff together before we eventually had a falling out. Okay, this is, yep, I could go right on past that. Pants go. Okay, so this is just, another, look, some of these names I liked, and some of them I moved on from very quickly, and Pants come off with very quickly. I'm not getting any better here. You're with stupid, so I forget if it was 12 or 13 characters, but that's why, like, all of these names are, truncated in what I would call creative spots. So you're with stupid, so I thought it was, I liked how, like, the concept of even the person writing that someone else was with, like, you're still, like, it's an attempt to troll someone, so I thought it would be funny if I misspelled your, whatever. Look, sometimes I was just bored. I had another one that used Raffle, and I've used other kinds of locomotion as part of my name later on, so we'll see. We'll see where this goes. I don't think Rafflecopter was in the best. I think Lawler Skates is marginally better, but I will say that both Rafflecopter and Lawler Skates, that there's nothing I came up with that's not original. So like eventually, like these are things that would kind of like make me laugh, like, or chuckle. And look, I spent so much gold on name changes because it's not just 108 name changes, right? Like I changed back and forth, like I would revisit names, so like I spent a lot, like I'd say like a full like 5% of my gold spend in the game, when my gold spend was considerable, but a full 5, I would guess that a full 5, maybe not 5%, maybe 3%. Anyway, Trick Days, this is just, I do a little bit of stuff with like, this isn't Pig Latin, of course, but I do like, look, this is like base level. This is like really bottom of the barrel jokes. And here, look, and here's another one that's just like bottom of the barrel. I like big crits. Okay, now this is a little bit better. BRB fooding. I like the concept of conveying a message that was like, I'm not paying attention. Like I'm not here. I'm not paying attention. And, we'll get okay. This one, obviously was not a name that I don't remember exactly how I did it, but it was Ancient Chinese Secret. Oh, I think, no. What it was is I did it in Chinese. I just wasn't able to copy the text. So, like, I did Ancient Chinese Secret. And I just put that into a Google Translator. So I can't imagine that what came out was Ancient Chinese, or, like, what that conveys. It's just like, we have this thing in America that's like, it's a way to say that something is a saying, like ancient Chinese. It's almost like a cliche in and of itself. But anyway, and there were a lot of Chinese players, so I enjoyed the concept of like figuring out how to utilize my name to like also. I didn't want to not interact with everybody with my name. I wanted to make this easy as possible. Okay, over and out. This might look like a base level troll. But what had happened was the guild leader at the time, before I was guild leader, so I was like I guess technically I was the fourth guild leader of Seraphim, I think. So there was someone named Seraph who I never met, very quickly left the game. And I was in Seraphim by like my third week. So I didn't meet, like, I didn't come in contact with them for the first week, you know? So the first guy's name was Seraph. Then I don't know if it was Markovius next or Aderon. But Markovius and Aderon, the two of them switched back and forth in the very beginning of maybe like my first 3 weeks at Seraphim. So, and after that, Aderon had gone to serve active duty in the Navy. And because of that, he quit the game. He recommended me to take his vice spot. And basically Markovius, who was sharing leadership with Aderon at that point, like at some point, I think prior to that, I think they had some sort of an agreement that was like, I mean, it's better for the guild, like, if there's only one mechanical spot, that only one mechanical slot for the top spot, like, it should be one person, you know, and the game is not sophisticated enough, and the people who play it are not, like, there's not enough in the game to make people like mimic real life with it. Like, you need to utilize the power structures that are iterated in the game and communicated in the game. And, you know, obviously you could share command with multiple people in the hierarchy, but I do think that in a game like Ark of War and many games, it's just best if there is one person at the top, regardless of what exactly his power is, politically, I should say. So anyway, I was the fourth guild leader. I guess the guy who's both the second and third, Markovius, by that time, he had been guild leader for a while, but like he had like some stuff picked up in his real life, and he was checking out more and more. And at the level that, like, at the upper management level, we were going through so many issues, and we were just like reorging the guild and trying, and like we were dealing with like Gan, and a few of our players had gone to NYC, you know, and that had upset us internally, politically, and it was touch and go for a while, and eventually, like, you know, we figured shit out. But it was very, very clear by that point that Markovius was basically done with the game, and he had a lot of stuff popping up in his real life, and I totally get it. And I also get that, like, I think from his point, he didn't say he was stepping out earlier because it was like the one point of consistency that we had. And I do think that it was good that we had, like, even as we were, like, when we were reorging ourselves internally, I do think it was good that we had the same person, you know, sitting in the spot. Anyway, like, he had basically decided he was done. Eventually, he basically just vacated the guild leader spot, like, promoted me to guild leader, and then afterwards we kind of had a discussion about it. But at any rate, by that point, it was very clear he was done. But every once in a while, like, myself or someone else in upper management would be like, you know, Marco, please, we need you to, like, send a message to the guild, like, addressing X, Y, and Z. And basically, like, at the end of one of these, like, he had just said over and out, and it was like the first time he said it, and I don't think he ever said it again. And at that point, it was just like, I don't know, listen, my brain fixates on certain things, so it was just like this, I don't know, man, it's stuck in my mind. Like, it was clearly an attempt to, like, identify with the people who were involved in the game and add an RP aspect to it, you know, to show people that he was still invested. But it was also very, very clear at that point that he wasn't. And again, nothing against him. I think, like, I don't know who he would have told at that point that he was done, kind of. Like, we were in such a state of flux at the management level, because at this point, Sick Nasty had left, at this point, Gan had left. It was basically overnight, so we had, like, this power vacuum. And it was, look, I'm an argumentative guy, and we also had another guy in management who was super argumentative, and so, like, like, we were bouncing off of each other. And I think, like, the guy said, you know what, like, it's better, honestly, I do agree that it was better, rather than him just going, hey guys, I'm out, like, to just kind of take a back seat while he figured our shit out. So, like, I don't begrudge him for that at all, and I do consider him a mentor for, you know, if I learned a lot of his lessons that he was teaching earlier, we all would have done better off. Having said all of that, it was super weird and over the top that he ended this one communication with over and out, that I was like, That's my next fucking arc name. And so, like, it was just kind of my way with coping with shit, honestly. Okay, so anyway, moving on. What's up, Bad Ice? I don't know why I'm waving to you. I don't have my camera on. Fucking deal with it. I hope you're doing well. Jack off emoji. Like, it was just like, I guess part of this is the fact that I was trying to make it seem like a name by spelling it differently and making the M like the last name. And I was just like, as I was getting frustrated with the game and with people, like, I would vent my frustration through changing my name. Your stalker. This is just whatever experimentation. I don't think this is a particularly good name, you know, like, obviously with the serial killer motif, I tried to, fucking, you know, make the fucking letters all over the place, like a serial killer would have jumbled it together. Okay, now, this one I actually did like, which is continue, question mark. I like shit like that. Steel guitar, I don't know what I was thinking. Mr. Meteor. I don't, like, some of this stuff, like, just would come to me, and I'd be like, my next arc name is Mr. Meteor. I don't remember what. Like, I just think this is one that popped in my head. So I do this multiple ways. You're gonna see a pretty girl is gonna pop up again. And the reason that I loved this name, and the variation I think is slightly better, but we'll get to that when we get to that, is it allowed me to say things like, you should always listen to a pretty girl. And at that point, I forget if I was Vice or I think I was guild leader of SR2 at this point. And I've got to say things like, you know, you should always listen to a pretty girl, or it's mean to be rude to a pretty girl. All of that stuff. It was one of my favorites. And I've used it in other games. Let me turn this down a little bit. This is like obnoxious. Okay, Necromonger. Okay, you guys probably know this one. So now we're getting into some decent ones. We're 25 in, because this is slide 26. So I forget if I think I had the page number on the first one. But anyway, this is when Seraph. By this point. This is the point that Seraphim got we got our shit like 85% right, which is a gigantic percentage. After this planet of the story I'm gonna tell, we were on 100%. And honestly, what brought us down in the end is the fact that all of management quit Arc of War at the same time. They sold their arcs and quit, because everyone was like, I was done with it, and, you know, I didn't realize people were past friggin' done with it, and this is something I will always be humbled by, but, like, I really felt like Seraphim, both on management level and on the member level, like, I felt more and more comfortable there. Like, I felt like, even towards the end, like, we had gotten, like, I'm gonna sit here and say we got 100% of our shit right, like, we were as close enough that the difference was negligible at that point. In my opinion, look, did we have misses? Yeah. Did I have misses? Yeah, but that's going to happen. There's a certain factor of, like, human, you know, it's just human. I don't want to say human error. It's humans being humans. The planet before that, this is what the story comes from, and I'm getting to it. We had gotten, like, 85% right. Like, we did not, what screwed us up on planet, it was after 880 we went to, I don't know, it was the planet that became 1182. It was some planet, I think it was in 300, I don't know, thank goodness the servers, again, the numbers are leaving my head. It's been over 2 years since I left the game. The numbers are, like, leaving my head, but I still have a lot of them. So anyway, on that planet, our big failing is that we did not execute diplomatically. And why that was such a failing for us is, and this is for people that know the story, don't know the story. Seraphim had invaded ROI's planet, and originally, you know, we had worked like in a deal with them. The deal fell through. Parties fault on both sides. And then fighting broke out, and eventually ROI left the planet. We recognize that part of the real, like, this was a huge failing for us in Seraphim because our it was a key point of our strategy to execute diplomatically in migrating to ROI's planet. That was the cornerstone of our strategy on the planet, and it's honestly, it's not the fault of the people who are doing diplomacy. Like, it's just like, personally, I made bad decisions. Other people made bad decisions in Seraphim. I'm not blaming anybody. Like, I think, like, I would take the blame, myself, because I was managing. But also ROI made mistakes, but it wasn't ROI's plan, right? It was our plan to go to that planet. It wasn't. So, it's difficult to hold them accountable, but, or responsible, I should say. But, it was such a failing because that was the key point of our strategy, was to go there and to execute politically, or to execute diplomatically rather, and basically settle the planet without a war. What happened is, like, I mean, internally, I feel like we had our point to like 85%, of doing things right. But that externally, like, we pissed off every single guild one after the next. You know what I mean? Culminating in ROI. Like, by the time we had fought with ROI, like, we had already pushed everybody else off the planet. So, like, by the time we were fighting with ROI, like, it was like, I could only like exercise my faculty of empathy to think, like, in their shoes, like, they must have fucking seen the writing on the wall. Even while we were standing there being like, no, we're trying to collaborate. Like, we pushed every single guild out one by one, and it wasn't. And again, the tragedy of that is not that we got there and decided to start pushing every guild out. Like, it's just like, we just did not, like, our posturing was incorrect. And that's what caused many of the issues on the planet. Like, we just kind of assumed that, look, we were so much more powerful than anything else on the planet. We were something like almost triple the size of ROI in power, and we had like a good 6 months, 6 to 9 months extra in the game on them. But like, we postured like that, basically, that we knew that we had like so much power on anyone on the planet, rather than, like, if we had played it like a little bit slicker, I think it could have been very different. Ultimately, it turned out that, like, we had decided, like, based on what we had observed, that ROI was not going to be the best long-term partner for us anyway. Like, they were too focused on things that were not in our best interest. So, like, not saying like this justifies anything, like, this justifies, like, basically, pushing every guild off the planet and then them off the planet, but it wasn't going to work out. Now, I'll say all of that aside, this is a war game. I'm not going to cry myself to sleep that we were space jerks to a bunch of guilds, because there were bigger space jerks out there. And while I think our deal was probably not attractive, it was still a decent deal. Like, ultimately, what caused a lot of the fallout diplomatically is that, like, the terms of the mining agreement were not, like, ROI was not in a place to enforce it, and, like, ROI had, like, a number of guilds that were like basically allied with them, who were not willing, to listen, basically, either. So it was gonna happen. At any rate, push them out, and then I was talking to another content creator. I was talking to Melt about, like, the story of basically this declining relationship that had caused war, and now ROI was leaving. And he goes, "That's crazy. That's hilarious. I'm going to talk to ROI, then I'm going to come back and talk to you. Let's make a thing of it." I think he might have misconstrued, like, I wasn't coming to him complaining about, like, honestly, it was there were a lot of hilarious aspects of what went south. So like I was just saying, man, listen to the day I've had, basically. So he reaches out to Crack Chicken, their leader, and he realizes in the course of an interview that like it's not that like they were crazy and lashed out with no reason. It was like, oh yeah, like they had a reason to get hostile with us. It was not completely one sided. You could not say like they were in the wrong, any more or less than we were in the wrong. So anyway, he did it. So Crack Chicken did an interview with Melt, and it went on the channel, and I watched it. Dude, one of the best things is and I had never heard this word before. He called me a necromonger. I eventually found out that this was part of the Chronicles of Riddick franchise, and I still don't, to this day, I don't know what they are. I think there's some kind of roving, like, hostile warlord people, and anyway, like, I thought it sounded fucking awesome. It's a war game. If somebody has, like, if that's their nickname for, I'm gonna fucking own that, man. I'm not, like, we were not a pacifist guild. Anyway, so I named my arc Necromonger. Long-winded story. Next, In Contempt. I don't know, man. I was just like, I was just being an idiot, In Contempt. Oh, okay. So part of the war on ROI was a name calling festival, but not the name calling that you would think. We were naming our arcs different things. So like a lot of Seraphim were doing it, a lot of ROI was doing it against. So I even forget what this person changed their name to, but I thought that it was derivative. So I explained that. Okay, the Red King. I think this is when. Okay, so when we had like any kind of monster, whenever we had any kind of event where there was like an event monster, I was all over that shit. I would hit monsters, and you know this about me. And in the past I aggressive hit monsters like aggressively. Like I would when we merged into, I think it was 504. When we became 880, when NYC's world merged into our world, they had never seen like quote unquote Cold War. So it was like everybody always fell in line with what NYC and AXR wanted. And part of that would be respecting their access to resources. And part of those resources are event monsters. So when our worlds merge together, look, we're a free for all, okay? As long as there's no blue line headed to an event monster, that's your monster. Like, I don't care how many red lines are there. I don't care if you're 3 tiles away from it. I'm gonna send at it, I'm gonna speed it, or I'm gonna jump right next to it and I'm gonna send at it, and I'm gonna speed that because that monster is my monster. All the monsters are my monsters. NYC had never seen this mentality before, and so like anytime there were event monsters, I would kind of change I had already been changing my arc name to like I would take the event monster, and if it went up to like level 8, I would call myself like the level 9 event monster, and then I would like post up in world chat and be like, hey, come find me. I was a child. I remain a child. So this was for the Crimson Behemoths. I would call look, I killed monsters, okay? I'm gonna sit here and like I realize that I'm repeating myself a lot. I normally don't rank myself definitively, and normally I'm a little more humble, or I like to be seen as humble. Look, enough of this fucking shit. I was the best player in the fucking game at hitting event monsters. If you think you're better than me, post up in the comments, but you were not, okay? I'll say that. And as a backup, so like when they began to drop pure crystals, that's when all the monsters in the world became my monster. And I had stocks. I had over 900. I had 1100 at one point that I had just farmed. Like, I had these things constantly. It was what catapulted me. I went from T11 to T12 without any money spent. Okay, next. Oh, wait. Oh, so the Red King, right. Honey Badger. This is like, whatever. Everyone thinks a honey badger is a fucking asshole, so whatever. I named my, and then, oh, honest badger. So this was part of the name off, where I'm sure someone called me a liar, which made no sense because we made no promises. Anyway, a fucking tiger, because you don't fuck with a fucking tiger. Giuseppe. Okay, so there were some names I called myself that were just names. And I don't know why, like, I would just think of them and be like, I'm naming my arc Giuseppe. I'm an alt. I mean, like, to me, this is just irony. That's all. So, I mean, again, this is not the best joke in the world. It's not the worst. For science, look, whatever. I did a lot of things for testing purposes, but whatever. Pumpkin. So again, this is the same. Like, it became a point where when an event would happen, I would change my name to something king, and I'd be like challenging people, like, just try and take the monsters. And at one point, I pissed NYC off a lot because they had not seen this play style before. Anyway, we'll get into it. It's gonna be, that name will come up. Char Char. Okay, so we had someone in our guild named Char Char, so like he changed his name once, so I fucking took his name. Ice cream. Who doesn't love ice cream? Dear Diary. Okay, so this, I don't know, like, this is just part of my sense of humor. I thought it was funny to go Dear Diary, comma, like, addressing people as my name, because then I got to sign mails, Dear Diary, comma, like there was gonna be more to the mail. I don't know. I'm a fucking child. This is one of my favorites. Oh my fucking god. Bees. Okay, this is what that's another name, Reynaldo. I just thought, and a funny story. So, excuse me, funny story. I named my arc Reynaldo, and then one of the people in the guild who spoke German but not English, and so I don't know if this mistranslated, sent me an email and said something like, "That's a beautiful name." I really appreciated that. It's so part of the difficulty in me changing my name is that, I mean, we had a multicultural guild, but like people just got used to it eventually. Like for a long time, I didn't change my name. Like for, I think it was over a year, because it was a while. It was over a year before I started changing my name. And it wasn't until I went to SR2 to lead SR2. Anyway, the 8th Pyre. Okay, because the game was made with the devs are called 7 Pirates. Badgie Mandius, just take off of Ozymandias. I don't even, like, someone used to call me Badgie. A bunch of people, a lot of the Germans called me Badgie. It was fine with that. Mr. Fahrenheit, that's from the Queen song, okay? I liked Queen. China Party. What did I... Oh! You couldn't say China in the game, and you couldn't say party? Those were censored? So at one point... my name China Party. And yeah, like, I'm a fucking child, okay? And then, okay, look, this is just, I'm just experimenting. What's funnier, China/Party or China Party? Ultimately, I do think China/Party is funnier. Because it's like a conscious effort to say both those things that were being said. The in-game censor, I completely forgot how fucking terrible that thing was. You can get around it in interesting ways. So, like, one of the things that I would do is if guild chat were, like, quiet, I would type in penis, period, like lowercase p, ENIS, period. And that was just my way of being like, chat's dead, like, what's up, you know? And then I started doing that on the Discord server. Like, I would start to, whenever an officer would send out an email, like a mass mail, every once in a while I would hit reply and just type in penis. It just became a thing, like where people will, like, it wasn't just like eventually other people in the guild would like just DM each other penis. Anyway, it's I'm a fucking child, right? That was yeah. Okay, I don't know why. Yeah, I'm talking about China. Konami. Okay, this is just look. I played games, so this is like a powerful force in the gaming zeitgeist. Konami code. It's like up, up, down, down, left, right, A, B. I think I don't know, man. Whatever. Buffer. This is one of my favorites. Buffering. Dot dot dot. So I named my arc this, and I thought that was so funny because then like anytime something would happen, like if I would type in chat, it was like buffering, and then my mess, like it just looked like a glitch. I might have even thought about I should have done with a lowercase b. Now that I think about it, but at any rate, I liked stuff like that. I liked stuff where it looked like the name of my arc was out of place with the context. So anyway, like I just felt like it was kind of cool that or if you were looking at my arc name, like if you're looking at my arc on the map, it just buffering. Like it seemed to me like it was trying to load what my name was. I loved that. That was LO fucking yeah. This is just me fucking with the fact that they'll censor out the word party, but they can't censor out fucking in the middle of a word, you know? And I thought that was hilarious. Perma shield. There was something I thought it was hilarious to attack someone while my arc's name was Perma shield. I also thought it was hilarious to like be doing anything while my arc name was Perma shield. It was kind of like mocking our enemies that you can't hit me. I'm always going to be shielded. You can always shield forever. You know, as long as I decide I'm your enemy, you're my enemy. Great fiasco. Yeah, this is just I just felt that this was apt. And I think that a lot of members of the guild appreciated that kind of self-awareness. Fucking got what? If people would ping me on Discord, man, I don't know how people ever put up with me. This was my response, like, if I was an admin in the server. So not like on the guild server. Unless they pinged me for a reason that I didn't need to be pinged. Because, like, a lot of people come into this game and assume, like, go to the guild leader for everything. And one of the things that, like, we thought that was fucking dumb. So we had a hierarchy. So, like, this was just, I don't know. Most of the time, though, it wasn't on the on the guild server. But, like, on other servers, I was the admin of, like, don't at me, bro. Yeah. So this is how I would respond. Birds and bees. Just fucking around with, like, idioms. I do that. Knife store. So I mentioned store before. Unicorn store was the first one we did. So knife store. This was one that I kind of liked. I don't really know. It was like, I don't know, while we were fighting some people. I felt like, no, actually, I don't think we were at war at the time. But I don't know. I just felt like this was funny. Like, in my mind, a knife store was like the knife version of a gun. But that would only make sense if you would call a gun a bullet store, which you don't. So I just felt like the way to describe applying a knife to someone was you would utilize a knife store. I don't know. See, like, even as I'm going through this, like, stupidity, it's making me laugh. And this is now an apt one. Raffle map. Yeah, I mean, come on, this is an awesome one. Loller skates and Rafflecopter are derivative. This is a classic. NYC recruit me. I was just like, dude, one of the worst things fighting with Seraphim at the time is you had to fucking deal with me and my ego and my loud ass mouth. So this is just like, I would pick any way to just like prod the shit out of them. So I moved my arc into the middle of their hive, and I just renamed it NYC recruitment. In wrong guild. This is again, I was just trying to get their attention. Hot Wheels, like, I'm just fucking like, this is like the lowest form of wit. Is just like, I would make my name the name of the other guy, like, whatever. Robbing Hood. We did a lot of zeroing NYC arcs. We got a lot of resources out of that. So I thought that this was apt. Interestingly, at the time, like, I believe I'd been switching back and forth to my main arc name, which was the first one, which was Ridiculous B. And I think at this point, like it was after this point that like Sick Nasty had left to NYC. We were fighting NYC, and he was fucking done with my shit. So I think that it was at one point he then named, like, I had named my arc Robbing Hood. He changed his alt's name to Ridiculous B. I remember this because someone sent us an image of like the NYC Discord server, which was just like the English speakers there. So there were like 8 people in the Discord server. And like and he like posted like this image of his arc as Ridiculous B, like, haha, now he's never gonna be able to change his name back. At this point, look, we're about halfway done. We're on name 58 here. So like I had no compunction about losing the name Ridiculous B forever. And in fact, it was by that point I had preferred Badger centric names. At any rate, it was while I changed my name to Robbing Hood that occurred. System, I like, it's the same as buffering, right? System was always in the chat system in game that would say like when there's like when capital changes hands or other announcements. And so I thought it was funny as hell to rename my arc System, but I had to use a decimal at the end. You can't name your arc System, which is odd that they put that in. Need up your attack. This became one of those, again, when I found like when I would fight people, they would say something just redonkulous. I fucking loved it, and I filed it away and used it like to vent my frustration. So like there's one point when like Gad speed hit someone on their tile. Like, he speed hit a Seraphim farmer on the tile, and it had, like, a farming formation where, like, you leave a particular slot empty. It was, like, there was, like, one of each high tier in a couple of the slots, and then there was, like, T1 behind it. And, you know, surprise, surprise, the farming formation lost against the full march. And Gen was in this point where he was trying to recruit people from the inside of Seraphim, because like only a few had moved over to NYC. So like he was sending messages to like people in Seraphim just to engage them in any way. And it was after he like full marched this mining formation that he wrote that, I forget who it was, but he wrote the guy an email, which need up your attack. Like, and this kind of like highlights how terrible of a player he was, because obviously attack had nothing to do with it. Like, you should never lose against a tile when you attack a tile. And like he was deploying, like I forget if at the time it was T11 or T12. It was probably T12. And like the other person used like 2 T9. Like it fits in your med bay. You heal them for free. No one gives a shit. They might as well be Rangers anyway. So that became my arc name. Need up your attack. And we would then, that became an internal joke in Seraphim, where like if somebody would lose a fight for a very obvious reason, or they were like aiming to lose, we would say, like, the joke would be need up your attack. So I'm surprised they're only at 61 here. So the first it's because I'm going so damn slow. The first guild leader, the first leader of Seraphim, was called Seraph, which I thought funny. You know that. I mean, he named his guild after himself. I named my first guild after myself, the ridiculous one. So I can't really. I can only get so angry. Yeah. So this is after. So war had not yet broken out with NYC. We had this quote-unquote alliance with them, which was just in name, but like we weren't gonna break it. We wanted them to break it. So I hit a lot of event monsters, and that was starting to piss them off, because they had come from this mentality that like, listen, we're saying half the planet is ours, the right side of the map is ours, therefore all the event monsters on the right side are ours. And we were like, nope, idiot, you know. And it was funny because they were they were at least partially successful in keeping us from farming on the right side, although not really. Like they weren't like like really religious tile hunters. Like, but I just thought it was fun. Like, it was so clear that they were getting pissed that they could not control this situation and that they had not perceived of this ever happening. And look, they were screwing with us politically and, diplomatically. So we were like, oh, have we touched the nerve? So I changed my name to Seraph because that was Gan's day one guild was Seraphim, so his first guild leader was Seraph. So I changed my name to Seraph and I started attacking every single event monster. They were all mine, and I was not doing diplomacy by this point. By this point, Lop was doing diplomacy, but I had visibility to the WeChat channels, and I remember they were so pissed that we were hitting monsters on the right side, and what made it even worse is that all of their diplomats at this point were ex-Seraphim. So there were 2 or 3 of them, and they had all left Seraphim, so they were fucking they did not like us, and they were also bitter that it had not worked out basically the way that they thought it would, which is almost everybody leaving Seraphim to go to NYC or falling lockstep with them, which didn't happen. We were just oh, well, we don't want to go over, and only a few players went over. So they were very angry with us that in them going over, it in a sense, they had a worse situation, especially from Event Monster's standpoint, because if they were in Seraphim, we were disciplined. We would not attack an event monster that there was a blue line going to. So I remember there was this point in the diplomatic channels where Lop was having a conversation with them. And again, these were ex-Seraphim, and it was a Chinese player. And he was trying to explain to Lop that the monsters on the right side were for NYC, and Lop was like, that's not a fucking part of our treaty. We never said that. It's just understand, we're not breaking the treaty. Go fuck yourselves. And I remember it had gotten to that point, and then the guy, I think his name was Peace Road, he goes, yeah, that was the Chinese name was Peace Road. He goes, who is Seraph? And I knew I had an inkling that they were pissed off, especially I would speed march the shit out of, if I saw a red line on a monster, I would spend as much gold as I needed to, as many speed ups, I would jump to it, because in our mentality, we viewed this as an infinite game. Our job was basically to secure, to protect ourselves, our own arcs, and it was to cause the enemy to spend money. I don't care if I spend more money than the enemy, as long as I force the enemy to spend money. So suddenly, NYC had basically come from the school of thought that if there's a line to an event monster, you don't march on it. This new mode of thought, which was quickest gets it, suddenly started costing them gold, and a lot of gold, and across the board, and from players that were basically sold on a value proposition, which is join NYC, pay NYC taxes, and your gold spend will be very low. And suddenly their gold spend was getting higher, and they were not happy about it, and people were complaining about this in their own internal chats. So I thought it was great that we pissed them off so much that their diplomat so clearly he didn't realize that this was my arc, which I thought was hilarious, because you could just review review power ratings, right, and see who was who. But I just I thought, what would knowing my identity do? I'm sure the next point in that would have been oh, we're going to ask you to kick Badger out because he's hitting Event Monster. It was so, I thought it was out of the comic book. It was so freaking weird. Okay, so Char, eventually I had to give Char his name back. And I had to assert that, really, honestly, I was not up to Char's level. So I started calling my Char version 0.9. I have T11 at this point. I did, spoiler alert. I did not have T11 at this point. I just thought this was funny. I'm just trying different things. Lookout, yeah, I mean, Lookout is funny. Like, right, you got invaded by Lookout, like stuff like that. I thought that was funny. Shovel Boss is what they named my arc when we declared. After NYC declared war on us, we declared war on them because again, I've talked about this in other streams before. Like, they said that they had a shovel crew, and I thought that was fucking dumb. This was my preferred syntax for a pretty girl, not the one with capitals or with exclamation points. I like the lowercase for stuff like this. Hanukkah Harry. Next. Ultimate Boss. I thought this was funny, if a little bit egotistical. But yeah, Ultimate Boss. This one, okay, calm down always makes me laugh. I don't know why. Like, to me, the concept is someone screaming, calm down. Still makes me laugh. Dragon King is fighting event monsters. Turkey Bot. So this is, at this point, we were no longer dealing with NYC. I think this was one of a few where it was kind of peacetime for us. Before shit went south with ROI, and we fought them too. So Turkey, whatever, it was Thanksgiving. Listen to okay, so this came actually. Yep. So this one came first. Listen, I thought it was hilarious that I would send out emails and it was listen to me, and then Ford was a high-ranking officer in our guild at the time. He did like operations, event management, stuff like that. So like. He changed his name, I think, to like listen to him, so then I changed my name, listen to Ford. This is Chinese for fruit salad because there was a point where the opposition guild that we were allied. Like, do you see a pattern? Anyway, it was the Chinese guild on the planet 545. Yeah, 545. And eventually there was a shake-up over there, and we went to war with them suddenly and like realized that their guild leader had quit like 5 months ago, and like they had no right to like have the territory that they had because they had like, we were full, we had multiple guilds, we had allies. They had like, it was like Paper Tigers, they had like 15 actual players. So the person who then inherited power, his name was Cool Fruit, because his day job was he sold fruit in a stall in the market in China, and so I named my arc name Fruit Salad. Block me. I just thought that was funny. Pumpkin King. Did I have Pumpkin? I don't know. Whatever. I might have. Search function. When they added in, like when they would tell us of updates, it was not easy to tell what these things did. Like when they would explain. So when they were about to introduce something called the search function, was like you press the button and it takes you to the tile that you're looking for, like a monster up to a certain level, a food tile, whatever. Okay, so I just thought that was hilarious that they called it a search function. I named my arc Search Function. Security leak. I had a habit for a while of talking in world chat in GB before going over to guild chat. So like I would say shit and eventually like was kind of laughing at myself, like it must have been something like don't target that strong, go somewhere else, whatever. So anyway, then in jest called my RX security leak. My bad, guys. Errors. I like stuff like this, right? I'm an Ice King. This was from an Adventure Time episode, right? Where Ice King tries to tell somebody that he's an Ice King, and like this girl that he's on the date with, and she mistakes it for I'm a Nice King. So, I don't know, it's derivative, right? Yes. Atman Bay, okay, so this is just fucking Pig Latin. I really liked this one. A B C D E F G H I J K L. This was a good one for me. We're getting into some of the Hall of Fame. This was my favorite error one, because to me this one really looked like an error. Great Spaghetti Monster. Anyone who hangs out with me a bunch will know that like an atheist, so I tend to reference the Flying Spaghetti Monster or the Great Spaghetti Monster as the deity that I worship, which I don't. You're a new dad. This is, I don't know. This is just derivative off of like your stepdad, right? I think your stepdad with an exclamation point is better. Mega Death Star. In the game, there was an item called the Mini Death Star, and I thought it was funny to call my name the Mega Death Star. It's not. Like Research Lab 23. Okay, so when they added in Research Lab 22, I was like, fuck you guys. I'm Research Lab 23. I don't know. It's not Pizza Party. I mean, it's pretty good, right? Pizza Party. Who doesn't like pizza parties? Holiday Store is one of my favorites, so this was at a point where I was the guild leader of SR2 and things had been going pretty calmly on the planet, and like we had attained dominance. I think this is on 545. And I asked for 1 week, like, hey, can SR2 take Centicans SR1? Markovius said yes. My arc's name was Holiday Store. When it said that when it updated and you went to the map, it said that it would say like like Seraphim and then below it Holiday Store. I took a screenshot and I added the text to it on Planet 545 Holiday Store reigns supreme, and that was one of my favorite. Like that's it. It was, to me, that was just for I did this for that joke, and then almost like immediately after that, been absent again for a long time. So El Nino, I just thought this was funny. Like when I was growing up, everyone blamed everything that was remotely bad, like remotely environmental, on El Nino, and now you never hear about El Nino. I don't know. I thought that was funny. Want to fight? This is another spell name from Desktop Dungeons. Want to fight teleports an enemy of your level or lower to a tile right next to you, so you can fight them. Rectal I'm a child. I'm a child. So I sent out pop quizzes a lot, and if people engaged, like they would win prizes and medals and shit on the Discord server, and we engaged people. And anyway, rectal exam. The internet is one of my absolute favorites, like definitely top 5, maybe top 3 names. You know, King Badger, whatever. I don't know. We were all calling ourselves so everybody was changing their name to King, so I also changed my name to King Badger, so we were just Guild of Kings. 7P developer, this is, like, I feel like I get this better at 8th Pirate, and System is better. You know, there's better. It's a step in the right direction, but it's better. Look behind you, whatever. I'd look out. Yeah, who cares? I crit my pants. It's funny, but no, only once. Otherworldly Dragon 9, okay. I said why I did that, because that was the event monster. Level 8 was the top quest giver. I thought this was funny, because I was guild leader. I changed my name pretty quickly. Ladies and Gentlemen is one of my favorites. But having said that, it's a complete ripoff of Louis C.K. And listen, relax. This was before his whole thing. But yeah, he said he was going to name his kid Ladies and Gentlemen, just for the jokes. It could be like, ladies and gentlemen, calm down. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to go to bed. Have you met my child? Have you met ladies and gentlemen? You know, so that's all. It's not one of my favorites, but a complete ripoff. Demonship level 7. At this time, Demonship level 6 was max. Magrak. Now I'm just calling myself item names in the game. A pretty girl does this better, you know, like it executes this joke better. You get it. Yeah. Please kindly. His support was always friggin' saying, please kindly no, and it pissed me off. And this is how I vented my frustration. I Am Badger. Yeah. Again, I don't know if this is from like I Am Weasel, the cartoon show, or I just I don't know, man. Badger number 1. Okay. So on 545. The opposition guild UMC, their tag was UMC, which was We learned way later Umbrella Corporation. And their name was No One, number one. And what had happened is on the previous world, two Chinese guilds had merged together, and no number one had whose original tag was number one had to change their tag to UMC Umbrella Corporation because here's the thing: the leader's name was Umbrella. Okay, relax. The leader's name was Umbrella, and his guild was Umbrella Corporation or Umbrella Company, something like that. And it was like a Resident Evil reference, I think. So at any rate, they were not doing a good job of upholding their end of the treaty, and like whenever they would get pissed, like their top player would just hit people, and we had to like beg them to like Gan was not doing his part as a deterrent, and like he was not facilitating diplomatically, and he was doing shit on the side like that was throwing up our shiz. So there was a lot of frustration, especially in SR2, which wasn't directly protected by SR1, especially not effectively. And so to vent our frustration, like because number one, like we had found out, so we had just found out that UMC stood for Umbrella Corporation. The enemy guild leaders, we found out name was Umbrella, which it was in Chinese. So like all of these revelations came at once. And so like it was this, they're called number one, but like they see themselves as a company or a business. So we all in like everybody in SR2 changed their name to number one. And even at the end of the game years ago, the end of the game, when I left, there were still a few people that never changed their name back. So like that was like almost like a stamp of like I was there at that time. And then we just started talking in world chat about what was best for business and profit margins. And like, I mean, you got to get your frustrations out sometimes. This was, I'll have to say, this was my all-time favorite arc name. So this is Badger, and here the interesting thing is not that there's Chinese characters out, but that's not Badger in Chinese. That was the name that the Chinese players in Seraphim named me. This is what they called me, because they gave me a Chinese name at one point. And look, I mean, I've talked about Gan going to NYC. I've talked about Chinese players going there. I've talked about NYC being a Chinese guild. Seraphim was always a multicultural guild, and we had absorbed Chinese guilds in the past. And so, like, I was always very focused on the fact that, like, all of the different demographics should feel at home in Seraphim. So like we need to engage all that. We can't silo our groups. So we did have a WeChat channel because it was very difficult for Chinese players to get on Discord without a VPN, and even then it was always a challenge. So we did have a WeChat channel, and I was involved basically because I did a lot of the communications, right? I ran the Discord server, and so, like, communications, it was kind of my thing. You know, talking to people is kind of my thing. And so, like, what had happened is I had come from an opposition guild. I had spent time in a Chinese guild for a while. And, I mean, in the beginning of the game. And then, like, a day is like a year in Hardcore. So, I learned how to, I learned how to communicate with it. Look, it's difficult to communicate in the game. It's difficult to communicate anywhere because they have different idioms that we do. So you have to make a commitment to want to communicate, you know? So, and that means there's a little bit of hesitancy, but you learn as you go. And there's certain like word pairings that you learn. And so I had come from this opposition guild, but we had first tried to merge into a Chinese guild in order to fight Seraphim. It didn't work. So I had joined Seraphim with a bunch of the players that I was playing with in another guild, and my thing is like I was involved. A lot of people, especially at that point, it was so new in the game. Seraphim was basically an oligarchy. It was like way overcomplicating it. It had people who were in charge because they were in charge, and they chose their friends or the loud people. So like bullies were in charge, and people who didn't care, who didn't seem to care about like execution, but just like what they got out of the game. And I was here coming up from the bottom as like I mean look, I after a while, like, I mean, my stance changed, but like I had a very authoritarian stance, like even when I was a low ranking officer. So like my stance was that like we need to develop this guild, like this guild is our government, and we need to be effective, and right now we're not. We're just a bunch of jocks standing in a room because we have the biggest player on the server. And so to me, like, I mean, I did think I engaged with people, and look, I was very, very aggressive in the game before joining Seraphim, so a lot of people didn't like me. I mean, a lot of people didn't like me all the time, but I viewed it as like like we're part of a collective, we need to work together. So I got involved in doing stuff, and people saw that like I was willing to take ownership of things and actually execute. So like one of the first things that Gan did not get involved in leadership. In fact, like we didn't learn until way down the line that he was basically trying to run the show. Like he was doing shit from the side that we didn't know about. He was meeting with people in real life and promising capitals and not telling us, and like because he positioned himself in the guild like he was like this grandfather figure, and he would always say he wasn't involved in leadership, but he would do whatever he wanted. And for a while, like people listened to him just based on the fact that he was the biggest player, and that's where you listen to the money. Eventually we got rid of that mentality, and that's when things started to chafe. But so it was one of the things that like he recognized early on that like I was willing to do stuff, and I had this like I don't speak Chinese, but like I clearly was willing to I was willing to be empathetic and communicate with them and treat them like, like we're all equals versus like the redheaded stepchildren. So one of the things that he said in the beginning is like, basically he wanted me like, he was delusional. He thought like the other guilds had like something he called a wolf pack, which is like players operating in tandem to raid. Dude, nobody ever had that level of organization in this game because it was so difficult to communicate. Towards the end of the game, like a few people in Seraphim would hop on voice comms and like sit in and like sit near the center of the map and like clear tiles while we had like a fort and people in it and stuff like that, or like garrison each other. But nobody was, not in the beginning, nobody was coordinating, and I thought it was like one of the like he was just delusional, and he convinced himself that the Chinese guilds were doing this. So like when I came over, he like made a big he's like, I want Badger to make a wolf pack, and I'm like, I remember thinking at the time, this is fucking nuts, it's never gonna work, these people don't like understand the game. Even like I didn't really understand the game at that point, but I went with it 100%. So like I was like, yep, absolutely, I could do this. I like started reaching out like, hey, we're gonna be putting this thing together, hey, are you interested in getting involved in like actively raiding, all this stuff. And I knew at the beginning it was never gonna work, but it was one of those things that like this happens in a lot of like companies in real life, but like there are like entire cycles of projects or like people who like will run a project, and before it gets to the end of the project cycle, the project has been mothballed, and like, but they've been able to utilize the reputation gained in quote unquote running that project to springboard onto something else that like was now critical. And then like this process would repeat basically, where you get to this cycle of commencement without closure and execution, But at the same time, the people involved or the people running these things involved, like the only product of this structure is somebody gets promoted. So like I knew at the beginning. I listen. There were a few things like I didn't like the current culture of Seraphim. Like I thought we were fucking bullies, and people didn't understand the game, and they hid behind big players. And I thought that was stupid, and I thought that we had a lot of dead weight in the officer corps. I thought that our hierarchy was confusing in the beginning, and so I was like, the best thing that I could do right now is be positive. This I could mend old fences and make friends, and I could get myself elevated in this guild. So like my job became being like I had even like we had canonized that as my position, where like I became head of operations, where it was literally my job to start things up, like make a framework and hand it over to other people. And knowing the whole time, like, nobody is fucking executing anything in a mobile game, but that doesn't matter, okay? Because it was practice. So, like, I was gaining, I was gaining rank. People were getting used to the concept that that people need to pitch in. We were not at the point where our rule was everyone needs to pitch in, and we were not at the point where you need to pull your weight, but that was a natural progression. So like even though we were not executing, it was like it was part of my job not to execute but just set up structures, and people were learning that we were structuring ourselves, and that's ultimately what led us to be able to eventually adopt the mindset everybody needs to pull their weight. And by the end of the game, I mean, we had an amazing bureaucracy and structure, and I'm super proud of it to this day. And then my last name, my first name was Ridiculous B. Not what I considered my most important name, but it is the name that I started in this game. So that is it. I had 108 names. These were all 108 of my names. What's your favorite one? Put it in the I don't give a shit. Look. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I don't know if you want to type a thing. Yeah. That's it. Okay. Have a good night, and yeah, may the force be with you.